know everything today and believe almost nothing. Jesus' most well-known teaching, the Sermon on the Mount, doesn't just reform our world, it recreates our world, using not just words and concepts, but living images that grab your soul. Join Sycamore Creek as we spend 5 weeks living into the Sermon on the Mount using Richard Rohr's book, Jesus' Alternative Plan. Alongside the series, you're invited to join a small group reading Jesus' words yourself. You'll find that it is not what you know that matters or changes anything. It is what you believe, and believe all the way through.
Mark, have you ever read a book or watched a movie that just left you hanging at the end? Yeah, like you close the book or you turn off the television and you're just like, what was that? Lost is the big television show that left everyone like, what the heck was that?
It totally did.
The series was the wrap up was so unsatisfying. I watched that show after it had all aired. And so I was aware going into it that the ending was not going to be satisfying. But I had friends who were so into it. They had a themed dress party. Everyone showed up as the characters for the series finale. And then they just had to go home in their costumes, shell-shocked.
Even knowing that the ending was going to be the same thing as you, it was still disappointing.
It was still disappointing.
It was going to be disappointing.
Yeah. So that's a television show. An example that comes to mind for me for a book is Patrick Rothfuss's Name of the Wind. This is supposed to be a trilogy. And the first book was released in 2007. The second book was released in 2011. And in the year of our Lord 2024, the third book has no release date set. We don't know. So it's just unfinished.
Some point it will come out.
Yeah. Do you have any books or shows that you think of like that?
I do. When you're talking about a book that's not finished, it immediately made me think of George R.R. Martin's series, A Song of Fire and Ice. Ice and Fire. That's the right order. And, Rothfuss maybe as writer's block or whatever. George R.R. Martin has these just incredibly intricate plots and so much happening in his books. And there's supposed to be 7 books, and there have been 5. And the series all seems to be headed somewhere. And I don't know if it'll ever get to that somewhere, wherever George R.R. Martin has in his mind. And so it's ended unsatisfactorily right now. Yeah. I think the same thing sort of, the shows, which I have not watched Game of Thrones, that show is based on those books. And it kind of petered out because there was no material to base it on anymore.
Yeah, so Martin and Rothfuss, they probably had a case of writer's block, but sometimes it's done on purpose. Lost clearly made a decision.
That was how they wanted to end it.
I did a quick Google search of movies that ended on a cliffhanger, and some of them, are a part of a series.
Yeah, so you got to
Avengers, and there's some stuff like that. But then there was one of them that I found. It's called The Italian Job, which was released in 1969. I haven't seen it, but I looked it up, and I don't know if this is where the term cliffhanger comes from, but at the end of this movie, there's a bus balanced on the edge of a cliff, and it ends with the lead character going,
"Hang on a minute, lads. I've got a great idea."
And then it goes to credits.
It just stops.
And then it just stops.
It's like a literal cliffhanger.
It's a literal cliffhanger. I think there can be all kinds of reasons that things end in this way. And as we look at the end of the Sermon on the Mount today, we're going to find that maybe it leaves us hanging a little bit. But before we get to that, let's pause for a chat question. All kinds of stories, movies, television shows, books, things like that can end abruptly. So talk about a story where the ending left you hanging.